All right. I just want to make a quick video. Not really going over builds per se because I've kind of recorded a couple on that already, but just to kind of reinstate the reasoning behind why I think that people are kind of wrong when they say that you have to take a fully advanced skill, especially in this game called Scum, when you first start off in the game. For an example, this is a character that I'm working on building right now to be kind of an old account hitman kind of thing that I can have some fun with without risking my fame points. But say like some skills like conditioning, for instance, right now we have advanced conditioning, and if we sprint, you can see that you're gaining 3 points or so a second. Now, when it's medium, it's going to be less than that. Okay, and I'm pretty sure even between basic and medium, the skill gain is less than that. So what I think the balancing point is not necessarily to have max in a skill at the beginning of the game. Everyone says that's what you want to do, but for instance, I think it's all about balancing it to the 0 to medium skill level. Everyone that I've seen so far, they go and they basically say that it's really easy to get to medium. After medium is when the grind starts. So for running, for instance, let's say if you get or you do one a second, you get 1 point a second. Okay. When your running is higher, you're going to be able to run a farther distance per turn. So you're going to be gaining seconds on each rest period that you would have had. Okay. But even if you get 1 point per second on each of those, um, you're looking at 30 hours to get to medium. So if someone took nothing in that skill, it would take them 30 hours of running to get to medium running. Okay. Now, that's at 1 skill point per second. Now, we've already seen that at advanced, we can get like 4 a second. But let's say, you go and you do 1,000,000 points for advanced and say you can get 2 points per second. And then we do the calculation again, and you get 138. So if you can get 2 points consistently, okay, and medium is 0 to 100 or 110,000, but you're gaining at twice the rate or such, you should be able to lower your skill point usage by at least the amount that you would need. So that would be basically 220,000 is what you could do. So you could take 4 points off of running, which is about enough for basic endurance, and then you would still be able to gain the same skill points in the same amount of time. So if you lower 4 points from advanced, you would need 200,000, and then you would be able to get that at 2 seconds per, and then you do the calculation, and you get 27 hours. I'm not saying that you have to do this. You would be losing out on the benefit of having that skill maxed at the beginning of the game. Specifically, you would lose, 1 or 2 kilometers per hour in running, but you wouldn't be losing much. You'd be losing a little bit of endurance. It wouldn't be super noticeable. And then, given the same amount of time as someone who doesn't have anything in that skill, you would level up your skill in the same amount of time to advanced as they would to medium. and then you would be a little bit behind the people who have, advanced running at the beginning for advanced plus, but I don't think it would be that big of a deal. So you can see running is one of the major ones that you need at the beginning of the game. And we can already get this down and be able to match it at 30 hours, pretty much. We can basically even increase this a little bit more and go above. But I think if you decrease any more, you end up at 67%. So if you do 67%, you would need 340, basically 340,000 XP points. And if we can do it at 2 a second, and then we do the calculation, you get 47 hours. So you're going to be right in the ballpark. Is if you want to go a little bit longer than normal, you could go down to 67%. And then if you want to go about the same rate, a little bit faster, you could go 3 points. But that gives you almost enough to go ahead and get basic endurance, which would then offset the use of the skill. Things with like medical skill, for instance, probably not worth it to actually do this, because with medical skill, as far as I could tell so far, every time that you do anything, it's going to take 25 XP per heal. So you're going to be stuck doing 40,000 plus heals, you know, until you get it. So 44400 divided by 25. Actually, no, that wasn't right. I fucked that one up. But uh do that divided by 25, and you get 44,400 heals that you'd have to do, which isn't terrible. I mean, at the beginning of the game, you can get 3 heals on a C1 and get like 100 XP. I don't know if that's a glitch or something, but I seem to be getting 100 HP every time that I use 3 rags on a thing. But basically, if we divided that by 3, that's how many heals you would actually have to heal, which is, 14,800. Isn't terrible, but isn't the best. Like you could get that over a time period, but if you're in a race, uh, this is going to take the longest probably to level out of most of the skills. Now, awareness seems to be the second runner up to that because it doesn't seem to have very high scaling on its abilities, so I don't really know exactly how that works. I haven't really looked at awarenesses, scaling or like how much you get per level. But if we go and do, let's see, stealth, for instance. Stealth is one of those skills that everybody wants at the beginning of the game, and it's pretty darn effective for the most part. And I find that somewhere between medium and advanced, about halfway, that's when you actually start seeing a big benefit to the stealth skill with like most AI. So I know from at least level 1, we're getting, you know, basically, 1 every second or 2. Not the best. I also seem to notice that wearing rag shoes seems to help a little bit with this. So, you're getting, 1 every second or 2. I don't think going prone or anything like that actually helps. So, you're looking at doing that for the first, at least the first bit. But even if it's the same for the second part, and we're just going to say that you get 1 per second, it's going to take you 30 hours, just like running, to get to basics or medium stealth. Okay. So you're looking at a time frame for most of your skills to get to medium about 30 hours. And then the question becomes is that can you increase other skills or at least balance out the other skills to be able to level to max in the same sort of time frames. Because you're seeing, with conditioning, it's only going to level when you're running, and the rate doesn't really seem to go up a terrible too much as you go up. It does get better, but it's not super crazy. Medical doesn't really go up at all. So, I mean, it's going to take you a while to level that compared to other skills like survival, which levels up pretty quick, and engineering, which levels up pretty quick. Awareness drags behind. Camo levels up really fast. And camo is one of those skills, too, that it doesn't seem to have any increased XP gain, but it's also not difficult to level because all you got to do is set there. So, the difficulty to level it, all you got to do is set and make sure your character is alive. Whereas medical, you have to get injured, you have to find medical supplies, you got to be able to heal yourself before dying, all that, and you run the risk of losing the fame points when you die. So all that combined, it's medical or awareness for the most part that are the top two contenders for intelligence. And then conditioning and endurance are pretty much neck and neck in the game, but conditioning would probably be more easy to level in the game. You'd use it more often. Endurance, you're only going to use under load, but it's seemingly right now, if you use one more than the other, then it's going to kind of affect the leveling of the other one. The other one just won't tend to level. One example of all this stuff that we're doing right now is like brawling and melee. I like both of these, but I know like from level 1, or I think like the lowest that I ever go is basic. So like basic skill, you get like 7 XP points um, per auto attack on a body. So you would need 100,000, and then you divide that by 7 to get that many hits. And if you can do that many hits, uh, let's say per second, you can do a hit per second, which might be a little bit faster than what you actually can do because it's also tied to your stamina usage. And then you divide that by this, and you get 3 to 4 hours. And that's going to go from basic to medium. So about 4 hours, you're going to get to medium. And then at medium, it goes up to 17 per hit, but you need 100,000. Or you need 1,000,000. Okay. And then we do that, a calculation again, and you're getting about 16 hours. So if you have both skills at medium, it's going to take you 16 hours per skill to get to advanced. Okay. Now, if I have one at advanced and the other one not at advanced, we already seen that from basic to medium is going to take 4 hours. Okay. So that's already bumping this up to about 20 hours. And I don't know what you get for 0 to basic. So I don't know. Let's say you get like 4 or something. All right, so you're looking, probably in the ballpark around 20 hours to level skill from 0 to advanced. Now, when I consider those two skills starting out, splitting them doesn't seem too bad. Okay. So you go medium and medium, but then you're looking at 36, 37 hours to max both. The good news with that is that you're able to kind of, focus on one skill one day and one skill the other day. And you get fame for leveling both of them more, but the bad news though is that you're going to be out time. So it's better just to advance one skill and level the other one from the ground up. And out of consideration of all the skills in that tree, for as far as I've seen, um, Archery is really easy to level because you can craft the arrows. Rifles is really easy to level if you have the ammo, but you could probably also use the crossbow. Handguns, again, it's more or less ammo usage. And then brawling and melee, you're gonna have to go out and find the zombie and then kill it and then auto attack it for however long. And then also rifles and stuff don't necessarily need the skills to be useful early game. So honestly, I would say brawling and melee are the top two contenders for that. And then you break down, what would be more practical between brawling and melee, and everyone has mixed decisions on this. But me personally, I prefer brawling over melee, and it's kind of twofold. One, I like throwing weapons. Two, if you're using a bow and you use your middle mouse button, you throw a fist and it punches. And when you have a high melee skill, you can knock people out, which is useful, especially when you're using a bow and you're not super fast. You can punch them and pretty much knock them down and get the job done. Using your fists generally is more or less of a last resort, and if you're using something like a spear or other melee weapon, you have range, and you can see it's not too bad. I mean, I have medium skill right now. So if you want to be proficient with both of the weapons, you can go medium, but you're going to be giving up leveling time to use those. And then for me personally, leveling wise, I use brawling more than I use melee, but safety wise, melee is safer to use with no skill because you have the use of a weapon. The weapon that you use brings the damage. Okay, so even if you have nothing in the skill, the weapon itself has damage value and will do the work for you more or less. Okay, so that's why I prefer brawling. The other reason is that I tend to enjoy basically throwing. I like leveling my throwing. Throwing levels up faster than both brawling and melee, so it's not a big deal. But generally, if I can throw, drop this. I was testing some stuff out because essentially, if I go melee brawling, medium brawling, and medium melee, I can take medium bow, and with medium bow and 4.5 strength, I'm able to use the 100-pound bow, and so I think that's pretty decent. I needed to test that out. But say you spawn in an armored zombie. These are some crappy spears, but if I throw these, which you can already see, I get a little bit of a benefit throwing them. But you can see that with my brawling skill increased, I'm able to knock them down, gather up my spears, throw them again. All right. So I grab my spears again, and then we go ahead, which significantly increases the kill time for these zombies. And then a heavy strength allows my spears to do more damage. I don't have damage numbers for throwing weapons because I don't have anyone to practice with, but I do know that with metal spears and such, you can do quite a bit of damage to puppets. You're quite accurate. You can throw it a pretty decently far range. And it looks like we have a strength reduction from hypothermia as well. So we have a debuff. But just that one fight there, we got 228 XP, and then we have 275 on the throwing skill. So you can see that they're kind of leveling up at similar rates. And since I use brawling in conjunction with my throwing, they're going to be leveling up together fairly well. Now, I don't even have advanced brawling at the moment, but this means is that I can level up my throwing and I'm going to be leveling up my brawling at the same time because I need to knock them down to pick my spears back up. And so if you look at it that way, I don't necessarily need advanced brawling, even if it does require more time for me to level both skills of brawling and melee, because I'm going to be passively using the brawling skill for leveling my throwing skill. Okay. And if I'm getting 17 XP per hit on brawling and 50 XP per throw when it comes to my actual throwing skill, you have to kind of look at the balance. So if you have an armored puppet, we do 3 throws. Okay, so that's 150 XP, and then you got 1, 2, 3, 4. Combo. Grab the spears. So we got about 4 hits. Okay, so that's 250. 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, okay, so we got a good combo there, and we grab the spears. Boom, boom. So that's 350. Knocked him down again. Okay, so 400 or so XP there for throwing. And then when we come over here, we look, we got 675 and 544. So ballpark, same sort of XP gain. It's very equal. Okay, so if I'm leveling those two skills specifically together, um, that's fine. And then, once they're down, if you go in here to Dex and we got, you know, 675, and we do that, 725. Okay, so we're getting 50 for every throw here. And that is where you can start using a body to level up and get more and more XP. So now that he's down and we had 3 throws there, you can kick him and gain XP here. So now we're at 83. And so we gained 20 or 17 still. Okay. So it's going to take about 3 hits or so to be on par with throwing. But you can't really passively level this as much as throwing. So I would probably, again, just level my throwing naturally and then level brawling with throwing. And then essentially, when my throwing skill gets low enough or high enough and my brawling is pretty much maxed out, I would just swap over to getting rocks, and then I would throw the rocks at the puppet. Because again, if we look at her throwing at 825, and now we're getting 50 XP throwing rocks, and it doesn't take very long to level this. Now, however, the more throwing skill you get, the faster you can throw, which means the more small objects that you have, the faster XP gain you're going to get while throwing, which means it's more and more efficient to level your throwing while throwing at a body than at the beginning of the game where it's more efficient to just kill the zombie. I mean, I guess it's technically not really efficient to do this. It'd be better just to throw rocks in general. But being able to level brawling and that skill up at the same time, I think is very beneficial. And that means that all you have to worry about at that point is melee. So, yes, it cost me 36 hours to level both of these, but I'm leveling brawling up at a decent rate. Um, Influences hand-to-hand attack speed, available combos, and blocking efficiency. But I think strength is what's really knocking these guys out. And so leveling those passively together, I think, would be fun. And so that really brings down to 2 options here, which one is you can go melee, medium melee, or I could just go advanced archery, or you can go medium in both. So we already know that if I take medium archery with my current strength, I can pull back a 100-pound bow, which is pretty much the best that you need bow wise early for bows. Okay. Now, if we go, and we could say that it's going to take 36 hours or something to level bow, but it's probably not. And we already know that from level 1 to medium doesn't take very long with bow. And so it's not the biggest thing. So the main benefit of me having a bow skill at the beginning of the game is to have a more efficient bow, which means that I can shoot at a longer range and a safer range. And since I don't really have a bunch of stealth ability on this character, then it helps me to be able to pick them off at longer ranges before exposing myself to a target. Now, if throwing and brawling are going to level up kind of coexistently together, then I can pretty much say that that 36 hours, the 18 that's going to be used with brawling, since basically nobody has any brawling skill at the beginning of the game, if I do get into a fight with another person, most likely I have more brawling skill with them and it'll be fine. And then if I do end up needing to use a brawling skill for zombies or something else, I will have some sort of ability there to kind of do some damage. And I think that's pretty much fine. Whereas a melee weapon, okay, it gives us reach. It gives us a lot of reach. So I'm going to do stone axe real quick. Axe. Okay. So we already see that these spears took quite a bit of damage. Now, stone axes are another thing. I mean, you can throw anything for the most part. Stone axes have a very wide range of uses early game. But now we can say that, we're leveling up all that. And then we swap over to melee. Okay. And so we kill that guy and we pick up our other thing. And then we go over to our melee skill. And now we have 217 XP, which you saw earlier. We were getting kind of on par that much XP before. So right now we're about 939 and 1,000 XP here and 200 here. So let's spawn another puppet. And we're going to do another combo where we throw the axes. Okay, and then he falls down. We grab the axes, pull out the axe. All right. And now we're going to go over here. And so brawling went up about 66 on that one. This went up about another 200. And then the throwing went up another 150 or something. So they're all leveling up at a relatively decent pace. And although you could level them all up decently, you can level them up together just fine. And I think that's perfectly acceptable for the most part. Like you're gonna take a little bit out, but if we're gonna go pure melee focused, just go and get another zombie. We have enough melee skill to actually stun lock compared to no skill, which means it's safer. And then when we look over here, we gained, 600 XP or something. But we can do this and you get 16 per. And the main thing here is that you can keep doing this, and this is going to level up pretty quick. The difference between melee and brawling, though, is that you can stand here in one place and not have to worry about repositioning your character so much, as long as the puppet doesn't move around. And it's just micromanaging your stamina. Now, What you might notice doing this is that we are getting 16 XP per swing. So as long as our stamina is good, and even right now our stamina is at 0, we can still swing the axe at a decent speed. Okay? And you're still gaining the 16 XP. And now you're probably thinking, what other skill levels up kind of like that? Well, the answer is camo. Camo levels up by 25 every 5 or so seconds. So you're getting about 5 XP or something per second. And we know that camo isn't very difficult to passively level. You can do it pretty easily. It takes a couple hours to get to medium, and then it takes a decent amount of time to get up from there. So technically, you could level both brawling and strength and melee up faster than you could level camo, because when you get to medium, you get to 17 XP at auto attack, which is going to be faster than camo. So you don't really need to level up any skill in strength. So now your options become, do you level up each skill individually? We already seen that it's going to take, 20 hours or so to level up one skill. But those are also the or the fastest skills to level out of every category in your character. You can level up all those skills faster than every other skill in the game for the most part. So camo, people level it up passively because it's very easy to level passively. Okay? Now, stealth you can level up pretty fast, but you're still stuck at about 4 XP or something a second, even at medium level, which is going to be way less than strength in any of the categories, in any of the skills. And then you're looking at conditioning. You have to run. You have to continuously run. You got to continuously micromanage your character to level up your running. And you got to level up your endurance while under a weight load, which you're not going to be under a weight load all the time. And then you're also going to have to micromanage your calorie intake and stuff while doing that as well. And again, those skills level up at 1 or 2 a second, which is slower than the melee and the brawling and the archery. So time-wise, it's more effective to go for skills that take a long time to level. And although conditioning does level up faster than the other skills in the categories, conditioning requires you to continuously move, continuously move. And that means when you're doing stuff, you have to continuously keep your character moving around like this, and then you can level your conditioning up at a relatively fast pace. And that's what I did for a long time. You can see right here, you're still keeping about point 0.4, point 0.3, and you could be doing something. When you're crafting, it doesn't really affect the skill. When you're eating, it doesn't really affect the skill. But doing stuff like this and making sure you're moving constantly all the time is how you level up that skill very quickly without having to worry about the negative effects of stopping and then it dropping by such and such point per day. However, if you start with 5 or you start with 4.5, you can get pretty much all of your skills in that category leveled up. And then if you stop running, it doesn't really matter because you still have you still have 2 or so points before you hit 3 and before you see the major negative effects of that skill. Whereas like Dex, this levels up pretty much on its own passively. You don't really have to do anything. As long as you're standing still and losing calories, it's going to level up. So you can level up all of these skills in Dex over time, but conditioning you might not ever be able to level up again. And also at the beginning of the game, having more HP is more valuable. Having more movement speed is more valuable. When you have no movement speed and you use melee and stuff in a situation, you end up running into issues where you're fighting multiple zombies, and then you can't defend yourself because uh, you don't have enough movement speed to handle the zombies. So you get like 5 of these guys. You can kind of play around with this, but it's definitely a lot more difficult to do any of that melee, but it's not so hard to do with range. You can do that with a range skill and you'll be fine. So early on in the game, those skills tend to be better and they tend to take longer to level. So if we start looking at some of these traits here, I mean, we can take brawling, but we know that brawling takes 20 hours. We could take rifles, which we know doesn't really take that long, but rifles does have a caveat that you need the ammo to level it. So if you don't have access to engineering and you can't make the bullets, then you might want to go ahead and take advanced rifles if you want advanced rifles, because it will take you a while to find the ammo to level up the skill. Archery, you can make the ammo anytime that you want, as well as the bow anytime you want. With rifles, you got to find the gun, you got to find the magazines, you got to find the bullets, and then you can level the skill up. And it probably won't be too bad. And handguns are in the same regard. So you probably would want to do something like that if you're going to do anything at the beginning, because brawling, it's going to level up passively over time and you can farm it out, but you can't really AFK brawling as much as you can melee. So that's kind of a toss up you're going to do. And then handguns aren't really super important to have leveled up, I don't think personally, because it's a sidearm. It's something that you're going to use passively. You have access early on into the game for 9mm ammunition and the revolver ammunitions, so you don't need the handgun skill. But if you go medium brawling and medium rifles, at least you have good points in those skills. You can make use of those ammo that you get later on, and you know that this right here is going to take you about 18 hours or so to level, but you can level this with throwing, and then melee is going to take about 20. So even then, it's about 36, but you're leveling 2 skills while you're leveling your brawling up. You're not really focusing on brawling. And then something like running, you could do half and half, or you can do all in one, depending on what you're looking for. Um, because you don't want to be too inefficient with your running skill, because then you get diminishing returns on your running and you might not even level up at all. And then if you go too fast with your running, you're not going to get any endurance because you're pretty much leveled up pretty good. So I don't really exactly know the balance there. But generally, if they're about the same, or you got enough points in one or the other, you're good. Or you just go advanced running and you're generally pretty good as well. But this calorie burn thing is pretty nice. Now, stealth down here, again, the stealth skill we've already seen at the beginning of levels. It's going to level up basically just about like anything else, and it's going to take quite a while to get the first couple levels. But when you get to medium, that's when we saw you're getting about 2 to 4 per second, which drastically reduces the time, but it is still slower than all of these up here. So ideally, like my main character that I use, he doesn't have any strength at all, because that means that I can basically level all these up to basic pretty quick. And then as strength levels up, then I can slowly increase all of them as I go along. And I don't think it's going to be the biggest deal if you're not doing PvP at the very beginning of the game. And this is where the things kind of fall into a different categories, because if you're in a server or a match where you have to PvP constantly, it might be a lot harder for you to level engineering, level survival, all these other things, because you keep dying. All right. And you're going to lose a bunch of fame points. So you got to be able to defend yourself. And then you got to ask, is it better for me to just be good at archery at the beginning of the game, so I have some way to defend myself when I respawn, and then I can level up rifles later because you don't really need a rifle skill to shoot the rifle and be effective with the rifle. Okay? You don't really need archery to be good with bows, but you do need archery and strength to be good with high pound bows. You got to be able to have the high pound bow, and once you have the high pound bow, then you can defend yourself versus people with guns at range because you can shoot. So this becomes more valuable than these other ones early because you can't guarantee that you're going to get access to these at the beginning of the game. Then like stealth, we already saw before, if we drop it by 3, that's 160 or 164,000 or so XP to get to max, which at 4 skills would be very quick. And you're basically gaining this at 4 times the rate. So, I mean, you could even drop this all the way down to 67%. I believe this right here is 200. So you need 200,000 XP here. And this would be 340,000 XP. Okay. So, but when you're gaining 4 skill points a second, that's a lot faster than going from 0 to medium in a skill. Because 0 to medium running, you're going to be getting, 1 point a second or 2 points a second. This, you're going to be getting, 3 or 4 times the amount of a base skill leveling. So having to get 4,000 XP or whatever is basically equivalent from going 0 to medium. And then you freed up all these extra points, which can give you basic and another skill, such as driving, which is the major skill that I find in this tree because it helps you out quite a lot when you get a vehicle compared to everything else, because motorcycles are a risk either way, but they're not hard to drive early on. Aviation, you don't really find the planes all too often. The other option would be thievery, which would help you get your thievery up faster, which depends on what you're looking for there. But you can level thievery up at the beginning of the game as long as you find the resources for it. You cannot level up driving unless you have access to a vehicle. So that's something you got to be concerned for. And then when we come and look at some of these skills, survival levels up pretty fast, but even though it levels up fast, you're losing time when you don't have advanced survival at the beginning of the game because essentially a tree takes twice as long to process. So you're losing, a couple minutes every time you process a tree. So by the time you get all the way up to a million or whatever, you've already missed out on processing quite a few trees. So essentially, if you're leveling survival, awareness, and engineering all at the same time, engineering and survival are going to level up at a pretty similar pace for the most part. Awareness is going to slack behind to where you have like basic or something by the time you're getting like medium and medium over here. All right. So survival is like one of the things that levels up the fastest, but survival decreases the amount of time that you need to process the trees, which also increases the amount of XP that you're going to get out of awareness and the amount of XP that you're going to get out of engineering and the amount of XP you're going to get out of demolition because you're processing the materials faster. So that's kind of a toss up right there because it's going to speed up, but still it doesn't take very long to get survival up. So that's up to you. But awareness, the leveling is very finicky, whereas medical, you're getting 25 per use pretty much at all levels, so it doesn't really scale. You have to find the crafting materials. You got to go find, you know, how to get injured and everything else, and you got to wait for your character to heal and all that. So advanced medical would probably be the best, but if you lower this by 3 points, now you're back at that sweet spot of 164,000 XP, which is just a tad over the 110,000 XP that you would need to level any other skill. And that gives you this 0.6 that you could put into another skill to level it up quick at the beginning of the game. So, if you put this in sniping, by the time you get a optic, you kill a couple people, your sniping skill levels quicker. You put this in survival, then you'd get survival faster, help you level up stuff a little bit quicker, or get fortifications at the beginning of the game quicker to level up and fortify a building. Or you can go for basic engineering, and then you can cut down like one or two trees because it takes like 10 trees to get basic survival. Use that to level up the engineering scales, and you can get a lock to put on something. But awareness would probably be the biggest one for me because that means that you could go dump your points. um, Awareness will level up to basic, and then maybe it'll stay more on par with survival, leveling up to medium. But having access to basic awareness helps you with hunting and threats and all that stuff, as well as helps you fight people that maybe has basic camouflage or something like that. So that's always a plus. This is how you have to kind of like balance your character out a little bit, and we kind of see what's going on. Um, But then when we build something like we had, we put this down basically to there, and then we put this up to 4.5. Then essentially what we do is this, and we could go advanced archery, but we know at medium archery we're able to get the 100-pound bow. And then this being advanced means that we don't really have to worry about leveling this. But since we know that we're going to be using our fist to knock people down to level up our throwing skill, it's kind of 50-50. Because also leveling your throwing skill doesn't require a live body. You get the same amount of XP whether it's dead or not. So you can level this later on your own time and not have to worry about punching because it's technically you're losing XP doing this. But combat wise, you're still going to use brawling compared to this. But this does free melee weapons to get more and more XP, and we're going to look at this here in a second. Um, so I want to put medium running, medium endurance here. And then we have stealth. We could go medium stealth, or we could go driving. This is what I'm going to look at here in a second. Because what I've did on my character so far is I've been doing basic, basic, basic. And that is essentially because I wanted to be able to level the skills and have access to the vehicles being faster with less issues at the beginning of the game. But if we break this down to the bare minimums, um, not gonna have plane very often, especially at the beginning, and you can fly a plane, which makes it easier to kind of level up in the air. It's a little bit safer, maybe. Um, Motorcycling, motorcycles don't stall as much. They are pretty slow early at 41, and if you go to basic, it goes up to like 61, I believe. So this definitely makes motorcycles a lot more viable, fast, less likely to get you caught. But motorcycles are also cheaper to buy. They're also, easier to store, all of that. So probably not necessary. Basic driving is going to be pretty much the thing that is going to help you out the most. And so then you got access to stealth right here, and you can level this up. So you're going to need 50,000 XP to get to medium, or I put this in thievery and you need 50,000 XP to get to medium there. So if we go to the calculator here, if we do 50,000 XP, and if we're getting, 1 per second stealth wise, it's going to be 13 hours before we can get stealth leveled up to medium. Now, if we do this, it's going to take us 30 hours to get that leveled up to medium from 0. Okay. But we already know that we're planning on using longer ranged weapons on our character because um, he has a longer poundage draw bow, less running speed, and he has less stealth. So it's not worth it for him to go into melee range until he can secure an area long range. And then when we go to the 50,000 for thievery, and then it's either 25 or 50 XP you get per lock. But if you do 25, that's 2,000 locks. So if you go and do one armory, which has 4 locks in it, uh, and you did one of those a day, you're looking at 500 days. There's 2 or 3 in an armory, so you're looking at 200 to whatever days. Um, let's see, divided by 25. Oh my goodness, what's going on here? 2,000 divided by 25 is 80. Oh, okay, I see what happened. So this was 2,000 locks, and then we divide that by 4, and that's how many armories you need. And then we divide that by 3. If there's 3 armories in a bunker, you have to do that 166 times. So if you hit a couple bunkers a day, that'd be good. The issue there is that you have to get the supplies and stuff to raid the bunker. But thievery isn't super important unless you're trying to steal vehicles or raid bases. So that is a toss up to where their thievery is useful for you or not, because you can also do 100,000, and then we divide that by 25, and you get 4,400, which is kind of on par with every other skill in the game when it comes to leveling skills, kill wise, and all that. And then we divide that by 4, and you get this, and then there's 3 of those and 1 bunker, and you get that 366. And then say you go and hit 366 times, you got to hit a bunker with 3 loot boxes. So if you do that twice a day or something, you're looking at 183 days, and that's to get to medium. So it is tedious, but I don't think it would be terrible. However, I do think it would take longer to level thievery than it would take to level stealth. And so that's the toss up there, whether you want to or not. And it might be 50 XP per, I don't really remember. I mean, so if it ends up being 50 XP per, it's going to be a lot better than what it sounds, because that would get this up to the number that it was before, and then you divide that by 4, and then divide that by 3. Okay, that gets you 180 something. But then when you go up to where you do 50,000 divided by 50, you get 1,000, and you divide that by 4, and you get 250 times. You got to go hit 1 armory, and then there's 3 in a bunker, and then you get 83 times, and that's a lot more reasonable. Okay, so it's probably better to go kind of in the middle with thievery and driving, mainly just because with thievery at this, it's probably going to be easier for us to go do kill boxes later. And then medical is a toss up because you're going to heal. You're going to have to heal a little bit at the beginning of the game. You're probably going to have to heal a couple of puppet bleeds, which could get your XP up here. You're still going to have to do 4,000 or so heals, individual bandages here, but that again puts the equation sort of in the same ballpark as thievery, because if we need to get to medium thievery, it's going to be about the same amount of picks and stuff that we need to do. But if we 4,400 to get to advanced medical, and then you're using 3 rags per C1, that is 1,466 times that you would have to do that. And you could probably do that, relatively quickly, I would assume. But then if you get like a C4 or something, you're gonna have to use more and more. But also, we have access to tourniquets at the beginning of the game. At least the place that I have my base, there's a place to get tourniquets, which kind of negates medical skill for the most part. So we could probably afford not to have max medical skill at the beginning of the game and just to level the awareness up. But for this test that we're about to do, we're just going to do advanced medical, and then we are going to do these two here, brawling, medium archery, and we're going to test the awareness and we're going to test the melee damage. All right. And this, I just want to see what the leveling is for melee and brawling at level 1. And I'll also show you that you don't need advanced melee to fight zombies at the beginning of the game. That's what everyone says when they say that they're going to take advanced melee at the beginning of the game, is because it's effective versus the zombies. But I've seen with spears, it takes like 6 hits or something with no skill. So, I mean, let's do some stone axes real quick.
Secure communication with human accent established. Greetings, human accent. My designation
3.
is dual energetic entity. I'm working.
Okay. So what we're looking at right now, as I said before, melee weapon damage comes from the weapon. It does not require anything. Also, melee weapon damage is affected by strength. So you don't necessarily need the damage. Also, generally, when you're fighting with melee, you can't just go right in and attack somebody. You got to keep bobbing and weaving in and out. But as we can see, though, it doesn't take very long to kill this puppet with no melee. It adds like a couple of hits. It's just a couple. I know with a wooden spear, which I think does like 14 damage, with max melee or whatever, it's like 4 or 5 hits, and then with no melee or whatever, it's like 5 or 6. Something. It's only like 2 or 3 more hits that you had to put in. Not the biggest thing compared to something like brawling, which you're gonna have to be sitting there, punching and stuff every time, and then knowing that you can go up to a dead body and hit it afterwards. 42, 44. So you're getting 2 to 3 XP. But we can already see that's going to be 3,333 hits for basic. Okay. And if we can do that per second, it's about an hour. So it's still going to take about 20 hours to level brawling all the way up. This is all you got to do. Just make sure you're hitting them. Hit them every second or so. And it's going to be about 20 hours. And that might be something to make a macro key for, but it's not going to be the worst thing. Like right there, we already got 100. Do that 10 times, and we have 1,000. It's not going to be the worst thing ever. Brawling, you can't really do that because it just your character moves. But you can see like 132. This is already going up. So the other thing to consider is what skills do you want to be advanced first? So it might not necessarily be what you care about getting to advanced, but what skills do you care about getting to advanced plus? Because you can see brawling is leveling up good here. So if I use brawling early and never again, I could get it closer to advanced plus by using it now. Whereas if I'm still using melee later on into the game, I can still level this up. Archery, do I want to get it to advanced plus? It probably nice, probably not necessary, but I don't think any of these are necessary to get to advanced plus. Whereas something like running, being able to say, because right now we got the plus 10% run and jog speed going on. If we get this up later, we can get advanced and then be faster at getting to advanced plus. And since you're going to be doing most of your running at the beginning of the game, it's probably better to get that up now. And endurance wise, it's not going to really matter, early too much if we get advanced because it's not helping your running. It helps your melee combat, but you don't need that much for melee combat. And then later on, like advanced plus, it'd help your calorie consumption, but it wouldn't be that much. I would say if you're going to start with advanced endurance, um, probably the top I would do is that'd be like a character that's going to be like a serious camper. You take advanced endurance, load your character down, kind of walk slowly wherever you're going to go, and then level your endurance as you play. And you're going to use less and less water. You're going to wait people out, but people can bring food and stuff. So that's a toss up. I would say that getting running early would be better. This you'll level up later as you get more and more loot, and it's just kind of an added benefit. It's not necessarily necessary. If anything, I would drop this down to you basically go down to where the U is on the thing, about 200,000 XP. You take basic endurance because that removes the negative stamina regen and lowers your food and water consumption. But the 10% bonus to get this to 0 is worth it, I think, compared to like 1 or 2 speed here. I think it increases your running speed and distance here and increases your effectiveness fighting for sure. And then it lowers how much constitution you actually need because you can do that at the beginning of the game relatively easily. And then your running is going to get to advanced within a few days. So it doesn't really matter too much. And, you can do that with point 0.3 or you can do that with point 0.5. But if you do 3.5, you're going to be able to get, you could do that with your running and get medium endurance. And that's probably one of the better things that I would say to do 3.5 and do medium and semi advanced here. You're going to be barely behind anyone else leveling up to advanced. Um, yeah, we needed to look at this. So we get 3 at the beginning there. Okay, but and again, like even fighting players like this right here is not, you're not going to be up in a player doing this. Most likely you're not. And if they have armor and shit, you're probably not doing as much damage. And if you throw your weapon, then you don't have anything left. You can't use anything. Don't have any damage if you focus on melee. Whereas if you have your fist and you have a good amount of brawling, you can still use that, which is good. Now, I guess the question is, at what strength and bow usage can we still pull back the 100-pound bow? And that'll probably be the next question that we actually do. Like, if we really want to conserve points, we'd be perfectly fine doing this. But if we could drop this down to 4 and get, say, basic archery, then actually you wouldn't even need 4. You'd do 3.5 basic archery, and then see if we can still pull back the 100-pound bow. Because I know if you have just 3 strength and medium archery, I think. You can pull back, or I think 3 with no archery, or maybe it's, I think 4.5 with no archery, you can pull back a 70-pound bow. But does archery affect what bow you can pull back more than strength, I guess would be the question. At that point, you could just do 3 strength, lower this down a little bit, take basic archery, see what happens there. And that would conserve points to other skills if you wanted to min max everything as best as possible. Then you could raise your dex or you could raise your constitution. A character that I was using before maxed the endurance and stuff as well. But I think having a character like this isn't terrible, but it does require you to be having access to more food, which is big. And then also these medical skills and stuff is pretty big. I would like to have medical and medium awareness if possible. So we might have to kind of mess with our build a little bit to figure out what the best option is there. Because realistically, if I drop everything down to 1 in this skill, I'm pretty sure we were doing that before. Um, not much that I need. If I only take basic driving, I don't require any of this other stuff if I'm going to do this. The throwing skill would be the thing that would slowly need to be leveled up, and thievery, but I don't think it'd be necessary realistically for me. So let's go ahead and look at awareness real quick. So we already can see that we got 20 XP for something before, but we're going to cut down this tree and just kind of see, because I think you still get 5 per. If we're going realistically here, I think you still get 5 per. All right. So we got 40. So we got 20 XP. So we're getting 5 per item. And it just went up 45. Kind of what my question is like, could you theoretically like cut down a bunch of trees or bushes and then continuously run over the top of them, generate a bunch of awareness? And that might be something that we need to actually test a little bit. But I don't know what the limit would be. I don't know what like the despawn radius would be. But that's the fastest way I could consider leveling um the skill, I think. So if we go and do this, and we put a flag here, so this is going to be the end point for us. Then we level up this skill. Because you can see, like right now we're already at 65. We're getting 5 per, so as long as you're getting, 4 would be 20. So, I mean, it's not going to be too bad. And we can already see that melee isn't too bad. Here's the main thing though. If you fight a player that has like advanced melee and a melee weapon, yeah, they might like mess you up pretty bad. But it's still a skill fight in that situation. If you have faster speed or something, you should be able to outmaneuver or run away. Or if you can cripple them by throwing your weapon, etc., um, they can no longer threaten you with the melee weapon. So I think melee weapon has a lot of weaknesses, not necessarily a lot of benefits early. All right, so this right here, I think the best way to do this would be all these tree branches. Because every tree branch you can get quite a few sticks off of. Now, distance-wise, I'm not exactly sure where we want to go here. Yeah. Now, the reason I was making a character with 4.5 strength realistically was because I wanted to make a character that was more realistic to myself. And to get them around the weight of myself, I needed to have a high muscle mass on my character. And even then, it still wasn't perfect. You can make them like super fat and then it gets kind of close. But I'm I'm not in as big of shape as I used to be, but I'm not fat either. So, but I wanted a little bit of immersion. I do think though that a fast movement speed build early is better than pretty much anything else. I really think that it's just better, especially when you get to being able to use different weapons and things. And leveling strength is the other thing because I think leveling strength is going to take quite a lot of time. Okay. So we just cut up all these sticks and things, and we have 225 awareness. So we would need, I don't know, 20 trees. I don't know. You get two or so per 500. So you need four or so for 1,000. And then you'd need, yeah, so you need about 40 trees. So 270. We're going to run a decent distance away and just see what happens here. All right, so this is somewhat a decent distance, not too far. We'll run back and see if we get any awareness when we come back. And then if this works, it means that you could theoretically just find a forest, cut a bunch of trees, and then process all the tree pieces, and then run back and forth over everything and continuously generate awareness for as long as all those trees were cut down. So we're at 270. And we can. So we went from 270 to 440. So this means that to level awareness, you don't need to craft a bunch of bullshit. We need to go and break down a big section of forest and then just continuously run back and forth over it. And you will level your awareness super quick. And so I'm guessing that is what we need to do in game. I think that's going to be the best method. Uh, so yeah, that's pretty important to know that you can do that because we gained 200 or something XP there all over again. We basically gained about the same amount of XP as we had before. But we do need to figure out the distance that's required to do that. I don't think it really matters too much, but what does matter is that everything that we break down is in sort of a path. So you just want to go through the forest, cut down everything in your wake in a solid line, break everything down in a solid line, keep moving, and then once you go decently far, just run back and forth across it, and it would level it up very, very quickly. And I think that's pretty important. So that means that survival is going to level pretty fast, camouflage can level pretty fast. We can actually level our awareness pretty fast now. And then engineering can level decently fast, which means medical and engineering are the top two when it comes to this. But now we know that basically everything in this tree can be leveled up decently fast besides medical. So now we got 470 and we're at 5%. Let's see if we went far enough away. Okay. Looks like we did not go far enough away on that one. So it's a pretty decent distance. I want to try and look on the map. We only ran maybe to like where that road was before. And then we don't know how long it takes for something to despawn. So you probably got 20, 30 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. Um, but you'd want to figure out what the despawn is so that you can level your engineering afterwards. That'd probably be good. So we rest. We went a decent ways away. And then we can run back and see if we gain any extra awareness. This makes me really question all those guides that you see online where they talk about crafting stuff to make, level the awareness. That seems like a massive waste if this is an actual thing, because all that time that you spent crafting things is time that you could have spent running over the top of a bunch of items. So we didn't go too far away that's this time. And we gained XP for it. So yeah, I'm thinking that's the best way to do it. You're gonna level your running and awareness pretty much at the same time. Our running, we've already gained a couple thousand XP. So essentially, cut down a bunch of trees, um, and a whole bunch in a row. Sticks would probably be good. Anything that you can do to kind of make as many items on the ground as possible, which is going to level your survival, and then you're going to run back and forth over this, level your awareness, level your running. So I think that is pretty good. That means that we just need advanced medical at the beginning of the game. All this will be good. The character that I have right now has, or my main character has 4.5 Constitution, 1 Strength, I believe 1.5 here as well, and I think, or no, he has 3. I think he has 3 here. This is 4.5. You get 3 points, or you get 2 points from strength. So 1.5. How did I do that? You only have medium awareness? Doesn't sound right. Anyway, we need to figure out what is the minimum for a 100-pound bow. I just want to see what this guy's skills were again. It should be 4.5. Oh, it's 3.5 because we didn't take anything out of Dex. Okay. Yeah, so we had 3.5 and we maxed stealth, and I think we maxed driving, which for me I think is pretty good on this character. I think that's fine. All right, so our dude is about to die because something. Camouflage got it to about 20%. Awareness is still low. Okay. All right. Yeah, because all of his vitamins and stuff are pretty messed up, so he's gonna end up dying. That's fine. We got like 500 and something endurance on him right now, and leveling the camo doesn't really matter where we're at, as long as we can get back to the base and refresh it within however long it needs for refreshment. Okay. So now we create another character. We have 3 strength. So if we go 3 in all areas, okay, which is still thinner than what I would like for me to be, realistic. And then we do advanced. Let's go medium brawling, medium archery, and then advanced stealth. And I'll go ahead and drop that and get basic driving probably. And then advanced medical. That's pretty much, one of the faster characters. You could drop this down and get basic endurance, which is probably fine. Okay. So it's a pretty well-rounded build with triple threes. My main thing is that once you lower con lower than 3, you get more calorie consumption. So I like to keep it around 3, but it does level up. If you have con at like 1.5 and dex at 3 and you run a lot, you should be able to get back up to the point, that you were pretty quickly. But I guess we could also just go and look at, maybe if you just need medium archery for a 100-pound bow and not even bring any brawling or melee skill. That could be a good option. But I don't think that we're going to be able to just use a bow off the bat. But also having 4.5 strength and then having was it 4.5 con? Or no, I didn't have 4.5 con. If you take 2 points from dex, 3.5 con, and you'd have 4.5 strength. I don't think that's a full draw. It doesn't feel like a full draw. I don't think it is. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at the stats real quick. So 29.3 running speed's pretty good. Because we didn't take advanced running, we're a little bit slower. That is good. And you still keep the stealth, which is good. Could be worth it for us just to go medium stealth on the other character. Let me just. This still goes up by like 1 a second right now, and it's already past medium. See, still very, very slow. But what we find is that to level this up faster, you got to go to like a military compound, like this over here. Even this, you're doing like 1 to 3. Yeah. So you can get 3 or 4 right there. So that's how you level this up in game when you get here. But when you're at the lower levels, you don't get 3 or 4. But you can see they're right on the verge of getting 3 or 4 stealth. Now it goes back to 1. So being around the robots, big deal. And you just got to find an area that's safe enough for you to just crawl around in. Yeah. So you see, decent amount of danger, very fast leveling and stealth. I want to try something. Anyway. I was curious. I thought maybe you could be able to distract them, but I guess you can't. Kind of interesting that the puppet chose to blow up by the mech. Might be a method to abuse that later to kill a mech. All right. But you can see, we're at 666,000. We need 340,000. And we divide that by 4. And then that by 60. And then that by 60. And so it would take 23 hours to level that. So now, leveling the stealth is on par with leveling strength or anything else. I think that's fine. Plus, it's already at a level that's pretty usable by most standards anyway. But now we got to figure out how much of that do we need, because we don't have, if we don't lower our dex, and we could lower it to 1.5 and keep medium stealth or 2 and level this to 4. And if we do that, we can go basically like that to medium archery, maybe. And then from there, just do advanced running. We have slightly less stealth. Let's go medium stealth with basic driving and see if we can get a similar amount of point gain. And if it's possible, let's just check this out real quick. If we could get 4, it would be a while, but be a couple of days. So you want medical. Let's go basic and basic. $106 kilograms. All right. But I'm gonna hop off of here. You kind of get the point that I'm getting, hopefully. And I gotta rest before I gotta go to work. I only got a few hours, so hopefully, it helps you kind of make some decisions, helps you kind of broaden your horizons a little bit. You don't necessarily need advanced skills, and it's the balance of effective players at the beginning of the game and long-term time investment to skill the levels. So all that's going to be up to you. So y'all have a